JJ, welcome aboard to the show. And I am very happy to give you the honor of, I don't know if it's an honor, I don't know, we can decide about that together. But you are the first guest to return for a second interview. How about that?
Really? I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
I
Wow.
I have given a few of those invites sincerely, but you're the first person for it to actually happen. So I thought that was worth mentioning after 150 interviews that we've had
Wow.
with 150 different guests. So quite a landmark.
Well,
So
that's great. Thank you.
now here, that's the good news. The bad news is that we're gonna give it to you hard. There's all the hard questions we didn't ask last time. None of that. We're gonna go um, deep and painful as possible. So take a deep breath. And for our audience that are listening to the show today, this will be a little bit different. So just be warned, we're going to be talking about difficult topics today. Being a border patrol agent, your initial journey was filled with excitement. However, working through the stuff that you've worked through, you got exposed to a lot of other very difficult sides. How did this experience impact you? And tell us a story of kind of those pivotal changes or experiences that really molded you. And how did it impact your own sense of integrity?
That's a good question. I did go in more just excited, right? I was a young man. I was just 27, started a career, right? I did all kinds of different work after college trying to find what it was that I wanted to do. I joined the Border Patrol and it was all outdoors. It was all physical. It was all a challenge to me physically, emotionally, spiritually. And then quickly, I was able to make the determination, okay, one and one is not equaling two. Why are we doing this? I'm standing on the border and we're shutting that border down. And then I go into the interior, which is in San Diego, which is, 5 miles. And in my own community are illegal aliens, crime skyrocketing, home invasions, and we're doing nothing about it. So I quickly understood the political side of it, and that became a constant drumbeat throughout my 24 years career. Now, when you ask me integrity wise, I maybe need to I may need to say this in law enforcement. The people that I were arresting on the border, everyone that got deported from state and local and federal penitentiaries up and down the West Coast would be deported on the Tijuana border in the giant San Isidro. So everyone, all the rapists, murders, pedophiles, gang members, everything you can imagine would get entered into Mexico and come back around and jump, and then I would have to arrest them again and put them in prison. So it was a very quick learning curve of violence. It was a learning curve of become extremely desensitized to that violence and to the people I was arresting. Because if I allowed myself to get caught up in the sob stories and the human degradation that was all around me, I would never have made it past my first year. And that is why you see a lot of police officers and law enforcement officers become alcoholics, die from heart attacks when they leave the job, because you begin to lose a real sense of belief that humans are good because you're surrounded by evil and degradation. So when it comes to a question of integrity, it's kind of loaded, but it did um, challenge me a great deal. And it to this day, I am desensitized to it all. The only thing that I am not fully desensitized to is the pedophilia and child rape that I have now found myself engulfed in my documentaries and writing my book. But I feel God has desensitized me to that to a great deal, but I know that there's another level that I'm going to experience. And I know that when I begin to talk to people about my ability to become desensitized and my ability to use violence, I know that says a great deal negative about me, as well as something very positive, because you want law enforcement men and women to be able to keep the evil from you. And I had to do things, and police officers have to do things in the middle of the night, in the dark of night, with no one around, when it's just you and I call them savages, the people that rape women, the people that kill people. And I have to do things to make that person submit. And I will never, ever ask or apologize for doing the things I did, because they had to be done. But it does, in a way, Ari, it does, if I'm being very honest, and I'm always, if anything, I'm very honest, it does change you. It makes you become, I have this battle, maybe this will sum it up. I have this constant conversation going on in my head. Are people good or are people bad? And if you forced me to make a bet right now, I would bet that we're bad. I would say that we're inherently have the capacity to do heinous things to each other.
When you are in the dark of night, what does that look like? Do you know exactly what you're walking into, or is there an element of these are hardcore criminals, or these are, civilians who are trying to cross over to the country and they're not necessarily armed, so you don't want to take an aggressive approach. Is there a balance there where you kind of need to figure it out? Is the intelligence good enough? How does the Border Patrol basically approach this situational awareness analysis?
Well, where I worked the entire California corridor and the entire Arizona border corridor. Where I worked was primarily all criminals. Now, when I would, in the middle of the night, let me give you a typical scenario. And I write in my first book, when I invaded, talking about the transformation that I went through immediately, being in the border. So I'm in a place called the Salt Flats, the 90s. This is where the 90 sensors were, like they're labeled the 90s, 91, 92. And so when people cross the border, they'll go down smuggling trails and they'll start tripping off ground sensors, and they will ping, and then the dispatcher will call it out in my earpiece, like I'm wearing right now. Hey, the 90-1, 13 hits. And then I know, as a Border Patrol agent, they're going to hit the 92, or they're going to hit the 91 where there's a fork in the road. Bam, 92-1, 13 hits. Okay, now I know I have to get to a certain area because they're going to be coming down this pathway. Now, I know 13 hits could be 5 people, like kind of walking in a circle, or it could be 20. I don't know. But I know it's 13 hits, so I know that it's going to be a fairly large group. Statistically, I know that out of those, I'm going to get a majority criminals. They're all criminals because they crossed the border illegally, but in terms of who's a maid and who's a gardener and who's a gangster and on and on, I know that I have men that are coming to me that are going to be criminals. And I talk about this in my book, that it is very unnatural. So normal law enforcement does not behave this way. If I knew that if I'm a police officer in San Diego Police and I have 10 assailants or suspects that I have to encounter, I'm not doing it alone. However, in the Border Patrol, that's just a job description. You're going to do this alone. The most I've ever arrested by myself was in Arizona. I arrested 53 people in the desert by myself. And it's mind-numbing. And I remember being on the exact spot that I'm talking about, waiting for a group of men to come up. And I remember standing there, and I remember being there I was probably about 18 months in, 2 years in. And the rational thought went into my brain, what are you doing? This is insane. Why are you doing this? There's 10 people coming. What? And I remember instinctively at that moment saying to myself, you have to make a decision right now, JJ. Are you going to allow these thoughts to enter your brain, or are you just going to go do what you're getting paid to do and you swore an oath to do? And I remember that day that it went like that. That's it. I'm never having these thoughts again. Or if those thoughts began to creep up, I would crush them. And here they come. And it's unreal. Unless you've been there, you don't understand it. But you're standing there and you could hear the people coming. And then it's just, I have to arrest 10 people at one time. And I would do it very aggressively. Some would say violently, but I would take them and I would take the first person down as hard as I could, and then I would assess. And what I've learned throughout my career, that criminals are just like sheep. They'll just fall down. They're only powerful in packs like wolves. So I would hit the first one, get down, and then I reassess and I make everyone lay down. And then if I made the determination, okay, I have some women and I have some gardeners and I'm able to make that determination, everything would change. Like my whole demeanor, everything would change. This is how, and I would tell them in my broken Spanish, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Does everybody understand how I'm going to do it? And if you don't allow me to do it this way, then you're going to force me to do things that are going to be really painful, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be violent. Does everybody agree that we're going to do this a very humanely way? And 9 times or 10 out of 10, they would just say, yes, officer. Sí, oficial. Okay, good. Let's move it. We're going to show you dignity and humanity. I'm not going to cuff you up. I'm not going to yell at you. Let's move. Now, if it was 10 men that are gang members and I could see the facial tats on them, I could see the way they stand, like from being in prison, all bets are off. I'm hooking everyone up. I'm zip tying everybody. And then the first one that fights me would get the most violent reaction from me because I needed to send the message to the other 9. You may get me, but I'm going to either kill or I'm going to physically harm as many people as I can. Which one are you going to be in that group? And that's the tone I would set. Now, some people may say, well, that's not really kind or Christian. Well, I don't really care because I never shot and killed anybody. I came very close several times. But the reason why I did not have to do that several times was because I was aggressive from the get-go. And I was able to secure the scene the best I could, as fast as I could, so it didn't escalate. Because when you see police shootings and you see the violent altercations in law enforcement, you can begin to, I don't want to Monday morning quarterback people, but you begin to see at that moment you should have done this. You wouldn't have had to shoot them if you would have done this. If you would have acted more, you would have come out with your taser, hit him with the taser, got on him, put the cuffs on. Now I got a subject that is alive, but you hesitated. I don't know why you hesitated, but you hesitated, and then you had to go for your gun, and it became a deadly force situation because you didn't do it back here, what you had to do. And I believe, now I'm not the perfect law enforcement guy, tactically, all that, but I was damn good. And I was good at what I did because I would not hesitate. But I was always, I believe, with integrity. I didn't beat people to beat people. I didn't be violent to be violent. I did what was in the parameters of the law and the Constitution in order to get me home at night. And I will never apologize because here's the thing, Ari. If I took 99 out of 100 people, or 100 people, 99 would fall down in the fetal position and cry if I let you and said, here you go. And let me give you, if you'll allow me, give you just a quick story. People used to ask me, can I come on a ride along? And that's when you take someone on. And I would say yes. And one man asked me to do it as my father. And my father was a giant of a man, 6'4", bigger than me, 6'4", 270, was a Secret Service agent under 7 presidential administrations. And he was not a soft man. He was a hard man. And he asked me, can I come see what you do? Because I'm a federal agent too. Absolutely, Dad. And I'll never forget, we're sitting at night in the Tijuana River Valley. There's a fog that comes across almost every night. And some days you can't see, some nights you can't see. And we're standing about 100, 200 yards away from the Tijuana River. And the entrance of this one particular place is called the Ghost Trail because it looks like Ichabod Crane type of thing, right? We're just smoky fog and eerie running of the water and silence. And I tell my dad, they call on the radio, hey, I got foot sign, and it's sensor traffic of 10 people coming up to the Ghost Trail. I say on the radio, 10-4, I'm right here. And I told my dad, let's go. My dad gets out of the truck and we're walking. And we get to about 50 feet from the Ghost Trail. And you can't see in the Ghost Trail because it's so dark and the fog's there. And my father grabs my arm. I'll never forget this. My father, my hero, the guy that would take bullets for presidents and was at the height of his job as career in the Secret Service, grabs my arm and loudly has a big booming voice. And he says, what are we doing? And I said, Dad, we're going to walk in. And first I said, Dad, lower your voice. I said, we're going to walk in there in that trail, and there's 10 guys coming. I'm going to take them down. You just stand right beside me, and it'll be okay. It'll be fine, Dad. I've done this a million times. And he goes, whoa. Where's your backup? Where? And he's getting louder. And I said, Dad, there is no backup. It's me. Just stay by me, okay? And he goes, well, are you going to turn your light on? No, Dad, I'm not turning my light on because they'll know me. I have to have them come to me, and I'll take them down. And I'll never forget my father looks at me, and even as he's only an inch or two taller than me, but he just is so big. And I'll never forget, I'm looking up at my father, and I'm looking at him like, come on, Dad, get in the game. And my dad says, I won't curse, but he goes, this is effing crazy. Take me back to the truck right now. And I walk my dad back to the truck, and I'm looking at my dad as I'm walking like, I can't believe my dad won't do this. And then I sprint back to the Ghost Trail, get laid up and arrest 10 people. And as I'm waiting for those men to cross into my area and take them down, there was a sense of immense pride that I had that my father was in battles in the late 60s, early 70s during that revolution when he was guarding the president, had to fight people, was going to take a bullet for the president, did that every single day. He could not rationalize in his law enforcement brain, this is what my son does. And he wanted no part of it. That is how a bizarre world that I worked in the Border Patrol, and I don't think people truly understand or have never been to the border. It's like going to Mars. It's like being on a different planet. And it is violent, it is desperate, it is hopeless, it is inhumane. There's no place for anyone to be weak. The weak get devoured by Border Patrol agents, and the Border Patrol agents that are weak get devoured. The narco smugglers and the human smugglers are inhumane. They're savages, and they will eat every single thing on the border. And the border itself, not the people on it, the border itself is a place that is dangerous. And the landscape is violent, and it devours everything. I have broken bones all over my body from falling down cliffs, falling on trails, wrecking my ATVs. The border is a living, breathing entity that has inflicted pain and suffering that you can't even fathom, the pain and suffering that happens on the border. It's grotesque. That's why you have to have secure borders. If you don't have law and order on the border, you are going to have massive, massive human suffering that you can't even wrap your brain around.
You perform the arrest. I'm assuming you, at that stage, are you calling for backup, or are you just rounding them all up into your vehicle?
When I was with my father?
Yeah.
Or just normal?
No, with your father.
Well, yeah, it's just me. I arrest them and I call for transport. There's always a transport unit. But listen, how do I articulate this? Okay, let me tell you how I articulate it to my son. My son's 13 years old. And my son will ask me every now and then, Dad, what was it like? And I live in Kansas now. So there's a lot of wooded area, right? And there's times where I have been driving around, not just in Kansas, but wherever I am. And I'll park my car and I'll say, okay, this is what it's like, son. Right now, a guy about 5 miles away is in a pickup truck with an infrared camera, and he just spotted 15 men that are walking through this woods. And this is your area of operation. You own this. You've been assigned this. Now, Joseph, go get them. And my son, the first time I told him that, he was like, what do you mean, go get them, Dad? I said, son, listen to me. You don't have time. We don't have time to sit here and argue and discuss. 15 men, and we have no idea who they are walking through this trail in this woods. Now I need you. It's pitch dark. Do not turn your flashlight on. Make sure your radio is down, that no one can hear it, and run as fast as you can about a half a mile into the woods in pitch dark. And then I need you to arrest every last one of them. That's what you're asking Border Patrol agents to do. And if you hesitate, you will lose. And I have done that throughout my career. And I was successful. It's how I rose up the ranks in the Border Patrol. And it wasn't because I was an administrative guy. I was not, to my own detriment. I was a task force operator, and men would follow me because I had already done the job. I never asked anybody to do something that I hadn't done already. I ran a large task force called the Coastal Border Enforcement Team. 60 men under my control. We worked all the coastline, the Pacific coastline from San Diego to Santa Barbara every night. And we would take down El Chapo Guzman's Sinaloa drug cartel loads every single night, either narcotic loads or a boat of 30 to 40 people. And it would be me and 3 or 4 other men, agents, taking down groups of 30 or 40 at a time. It could be 30 or 40 illegal aliens, men, women, children, whatever, or it could be a 30-man narcotic movement group that was taking the narcotics, 10,000 pounds of narcotics off a boat and put them in load vans. And it would be at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. No one's around. It's just you. And you better man up and you better do it. It's the same thing when you get angry at law enforcement, a policeman that is by himself and he's running down a dark alley and you're mad at him because he might have used maybe what you think is excessive force. Do you understand what it's like to be in a fight with someone and there's always a weapon involved? Why? Because you have a weapon on you. So if you don't win, you are going to most likely die. That is not hyperbole. That's not trying to get clicks or get you to be on my side. This is just the truth. You are in a fight. It's not like you're in the schoolyard and you get in a fight and you become best friends. This is, I either get this man under control and in handcuffs, or he's going to take my gun, he's going to put it in the back of my head, he's going to blow my head off. And we have seen that over and over and over. Law enforcement deaths in the last 10 years has skyrocketed. Skyrocketed. For what? You're telling me these men we're all got wealthy off of this? You have police officers getting killed and they're making $50,000 a year. Are you kidding me? So this has a direct impact when you see law enforcement guys, and you can see them even out of, we call it plain clothes, just regular off duty. We see each other because we stand a certain way. We act a certain way. We look at things differently than the normal person does because we've witnessed the evil that is walking the earth. And if you do not believe, I don't care if you believe in God. It's Easter. I do. I'm a Christian. I am telling you, Ari, without a shadow of a doubt, Satan roams the earth. I have seen it. I have seen the manifestation of these people that are demonic and the things that they do. There is no other explanation for the depravity from one human to another without saying that that is evil. There is no other explanation.
What did your dad say when you got back to the transport?
He said, I cannot believe this is what you do. And then I went home because we worked swing shift. It was late. We got home about 1 a.m. and my dad went to bed. And then I went to bed. My mom and dad were visiting from Florida. I lived in California. And I woke up and my mom's making breakfast. And I come down and I said, hey, Mom, where's Dad? And she said to me, I'll never forget, my dad's passed. So this is very important for me. And my mother said to me, she said, your father woke me up last night when he got home. And he said how proud he was of you and that only a man could do that type of job. So that to me as a son is priceless because it wasn't from a man that is an average man. I'm being told I'm being proud of my son and my son's doing a job that I could never do. And I'm looking at that man and that man was a hero. That man was the guy. We all did it, Ari. We all did it growing up. My father is a tough dude. My father could beat your dad up, blah, 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 blah. Well, my father was the baddest man. He was the baddest man. I saw it as a young man that my father was the alpha male everywhere we went. But I also learned from my father he was the alpha male, but you don't have to act like an alpha male. You don't have to insult people. You just carry yourself. And my father was the nicest, kindest man in the world, but he was the alpha in the room. And I learned that from him. And I don't know if I'm as good as he is. And I think I am an alpha male. But I learned the humility from my father that being an alpha male is not being that masculine guy that's beating people up or pushing. No, being masculine and being an alpha male is having the ability to be violent and to be dangerous, but never using that. Instead, being empathetic, kind, sympathetic, intelligent, caring. That's what I was taught with my father. But my father also taught me, son, the bell's going to ring in life. And when that bell rings, you better be ready to run in that ring and fight. You do not hesitate. And that could be not hesitating to do something physical to help someone, or it could be you have a spouse or a loved one that's very sick and they need you. Whatever that need is, you do it. That's being a man in the world that I grew up in. Wasn't all about physical. It was about being there. Does that mean that you have to go work an extra shift to make more money for some more medicine or to get a better house? Yes. Then you worked an extra shift. You lost sleep for your family to have a better life. And that's what the Border Patrol gave to me. It gave me a lot of great things. It gave me a lot of things that made me want to scream where I did many, many times. And it was very, very, law enforcement is extremely frustrating. But at the same time, those bad memories are kind of washing away and I'm left with the camaraderie and the men and women that I worked with and the stories and the relationships that we have. I cherish those.
How do you give your son, 13 years old now, that strength of character without him needing to be subjected to the horrific experiences that you've been through?
That's an excellent question, and it is something that I struggle with as a father. And I talk to a lot of my friends, and even though I have a lot of friends that are not in law enforcement, and we have this discussion, how do I make my son a man without killing the innocents, right? So I've been doing this juggling with my son as he's growing, that I preserved his innocence, but give him a sprinkle of reality. And now as he's getting 13, everything is changing, where I'm getting him more reality and less of the innocence, because I have an obligation. Look, the world, Ari, you look younger than I am, but I would say that we're kind of in the same realm. The world that we grew up in, riding our bikes and doing stuff, that is altered. I don't know if it exists anymore. Maybe in very, very small town, but I don't even know there. and the things that I have to discuss with my son and the violence that's in the world, I think I'm doing a disservice to my son by not preparing him. However, he doesn't need to know everything that I know and experienced, but he has to have an understanding of what is waiting for him, and that the world, we can talk about what the world is. And if we're going to be honest, and I tell my son this, and I'll just tell your audience, Joseph, no one outside of your family, meaning your mom and dad and your aunts and uncles, really cares what happens to you. And it's not a human, it's not a slight on humanity. The world is just the way it is. Everyone, our neighbors, are kind and nice, but they have their own lives. They have their own crosses that they're bearing, and they're trying to get through life. They're not saying they wouldn't help, and it's not saying we wouldn't help them. But at the end of the day, this is it. This is you. This is your circle. This is the people that you're going to depend on, and you will bring more people into your circle when you get married and have a wife, and you have kids, and you have in-laws, and you have brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, and your career. You will find one or two people that you're like, I will die for you, and they will die for you. But there is that dance that I do as a father right now, and I'm sure it's very different if you have a daughter. For a boy, there is my fellow fathers that we talk and have a group. It is not anxiety, it's not a fear, it's just a feeling that I have X amount of time to get my son, who's a teenager, to be a man as quickly as I can and as righteous as I can. And that is something maybe all fathers have felt throughout the history of time. I'm just living it right now.
JJ, thank you so much for coming on our show today. I appreciate you deeply. And thank you for your service.
No, thank you. And thank you for allowing me to talk about something of this topic. And I really do, Ari. I think that the problems in America now rest because men have not been men. And I'm not talking about like crazy mass. I'm just talking about men being men. And I believe that the having these kind of discussions is very important. I just do. And men being able to open up and say, these are my fears. These are things I'm good at. This is things that I suck. And these are my insecurities, because we all have them, no matter what social media shows you or whatever. We all have crosses we bear, and we all have insecurities, and we all have fears. And to bottle them up all the time is not a great thing. So thank you.
One last thing that I want to do, tell us the names of the books and the movies that you put out. So if the audience wants to look it up, they can do that.
The best place to go is my website is JJ Carrell, Carrell, jjcarrell.com. I have my movies on there, my documentaries, and 2 books. I wrote a first book when it came out of the Border Patrol called Invaded. It was a bestseller. And I just released in the end of February my latest book called Treason. And that's a bestseller on Amazon for many, many weeks now. And I did 2 documentaries on the border. And one of them I unwillingly and unexpectedly fell into, and that is the evil of child sex trafficking. And one of the documentaries is on how our government facilitated over 500,000 children to come into America, and then every single one of them are lost. They cannot find them in America. And it's a tough subject, and it's a dirty subject, and it's uncomfortable, and it's dirty and uncomfortable because it's about evil. The evil, abuse, the physical, emotional, spiritual, and then ultimately murder of children. And America is the consumer of child pornography, the number one consumer of child pornography in the world, and one of the top nations in the world that pays money to have sex with children. And which is not sex, it's the R word. I don't know if you're on YouTube or not, but the R word. And that is the world. That's the former shiny city on the hill, America. That is no longer. And that is not a feeling I have, that is a statistical fact when you look at the degradation that America has fallen into morally and spiritually. We have a lot. We need to look in a mirror and realize that it is us. The cartels are horrible people. I can't stand them. I dealt with them my whole 24 years. However, Ari, no, Amazon does not deliver packages to your doorstep that you did not order. The reason why the cartels are delivering narcotics, children, cheap labor, pornography is because we're demanding it. We ordered it. So we are the problem. The cartels are not the problem. If we stop demanding those things, they would go to another customer in another country and deliver it there. They deliver it to America because we ordered it.
JJ, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate you, and I'll say it again. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much for having me.